We're going to start with Chairman of NASCAR, Brian France, is here on the eve of the Subway Jalapeno 250 and the Coke Zero 400. Brian, you want to just start off with telling us about how you think things are going so far in the first half of the season?
Yeah, thanks, David, and good afternoon, everybody. We're obviously at the midway, or a little further than the midway point, and making the turn into our version of the playoffs. And I think if you see some of the things that are going on, we're encouraged by that. And by that I mean some of the storylines and how it's shaping up. You've got Dale Jr. obviously, in contention, won a race, competing hard. Could be a factor in the chase. That would be a good thing for him for sure, and everybody else. And I think there's also some interesting things with Jeff Gordon, and where he's on the outside looking in, and probably is going to have to win a wild card slot. Probably going to have to win a couple of races at least as he goes down the stretch. So that's kind of what we want, shaping up to try to match the intensity and competitive zeal of last year's chase, which was probably our best ever, and is to build on that. We'll talk, and I'm happy to take any questions. I know from talking earlier with some of you regarding how I feel about the racing and some of the hot topics of the day, and I'll happy to take any questions. But I want to say a couple of things that I had mentioned in May, that we had moved Steve O'Donnell to take a much more direct role with the R&D Center. And then we also did a second thing with that, which we split out the R&D Center from competition. They're still very closely aligned, and they'll always come together whenever we're solving rules packages or innovation or any other issue that has to do with the racing product. But to give the group at the R&D Center more clarity and more autonomy, frankly, to get at some of the things that are going to be critically important for us to get right. One of those is the racing product, and our stated goal is to have the most competitive and close competition as we possibly can. And I look at that over long periods of time with snapshots as we go along. And it would be fair to say at any one time, although it would be subjective to say, it's really, really good, or it's not as good as some would like it to be. And when the new car came out several years ago, it would have been a fair argument at the time to say we didn't have the rules packages just right for that particular car. We worked on that, later achieved that. Or you can go to tandem racing, go to any number of things that change around on us. And so our goal is to use what I've said, which is a lot more science than art, for us to keep up, solve issues, create rules packages on the intermediate tracks and alike that produce closer, more competitive racing. That's a stated goal. We're doing a number of things to achieve that. And then the last part of that discussion is technology and innovation. There's a lot of things on that agenda, things like drying the racetrack off in a much faster way than we currently do it today, which obviously would have a huge benefit to our race fans and the sport in general. It's going to mean doing things with technology inside the car, balancing that issue that we always have, which is not to drive the cost unnecessarily up on the team owners, but be more relevant in the technology space. We're working on a glass dashboard that is in the early stages, which is not inconsistent, because the car manufacturers, and some have already there, are coming with their own version of glass cockpits in passenger cars. So we'll be very careful how we get there, but we'll be looking at such things as that and many other things. So that was our goal with what we've done strategically with the R&D Center, and we're only a few months into that plan, but it's going to accelerate our ability to achieve, solutions to sometimes complicated problems. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, raise your hands, and Andrew or KT, you want to start here with Reed up front, Andrew? KT, you want to get Bob?
Reed Spencer with the NASCAR Wire Service. Brian, could you go into more detail in terms of what the technological innovations may be? I mean, is the object to get the cars harder to drive, to make them closer, put more emphasis back in the driver's hands, things like that?
Well, simply put, it's to make the competition closer, more competitive. That's a stated goal of ours. Now, how we get there, how fast we can move on those kind of sometimes problems, sometimes they're just a circumstance of how things have evolved. I mean, tandem racing would be a good example of that, where it have just evolved on us in a way that we obviously moved quickly to solve because it wasn't popular. But whatever it is, it's to make sure when you're watching NASCAR that it's as we've stated, that it's the closest, most competitive form of auto racing in the world. And that's going to mean a lot of different things, but we're going to use, and here's what's important, we're going to use more science than we've ever used in getting those rules packages where we want them. And then even when we get them where we want them, they're going to change. That's just the nature of this business, the nature of the teams and so on. I do want to make one mention that one of the things that we did a few years ago was involve, and most of you know this, is involve the teams, their personnel and others to share information, not only of where the sport was headed and business issues, but technical issues about what could we do to make racing better, safer, and different things. And before that exercise occurred, years before, whenever we would solicit teams for their advice or information, we used to get very self-serving data back or very self-serving suggestions back. And today, that's, my guys tell me, and I see, that's largely changed. What we get back now, engineering, simulation reports, whatever it might be, for us to look at and maybe change the rules packages for the future, is much more focused on what's best for creating this closer competitive racing. That's a nice change to see, that the teams really have mobilized to work a lot closer with us and get a better result for our fans.
Bob?
Bob Hawker, Sporting News. Are you hiring any sort of outside consultants or taking any advice from outside the garage or from or people that you currently have on staff and trying to work on this project?
Yes, we frequently use the smartest people in any given industry. We can't employ everybody that's best in class. So the answer is, as we do in all other parts of our business, absolutely.
Hey, Brian, Jeff Hood of RacingToday.com. Wanted to ask you about the 2013 season. How is the schedule for the top three series taking shape, and should we anticipate any surprises when those schedules are released in a few weeks?
I don't think there'll be any dramatic changes in 2013. There may be there'll be a few things here or there, but I wouldn't anticipate a big change.
Brian, Mark Dakotas from motorsportsunplugged.com. You said you all want to increase the competition and increase the action and all. Where is the fine line you walk between maybe getting artificial and creating that and improving things?
It's a very clear line to us. What we're not going to do is gimmicky things like I've heard we ought to throw a caution every 10 laps. I mean, that's nonsense. We won't do gimmicky things, but we'll do things that incentivize performance, incentivize wins. That we're open to. The wild card does that, but it does it in an authentic way. Double file restarts get us better racing action. Anything that gets something better on the track that doesn't employ a gimmick, we would be reasonably open to.
Hi, I'm Bill Alloway from FrontsTrust.com. These days, most of our the series fans, basically, they can't make it to races. So most of the time, the way they watch the races is on television. And many of us writers, and especially people like myself, get screaming emails on a weekly basis from fans that feel that they can't realistically follow the races on TV because they're so focused on certain large-scale sponsors or so zoomed in close that they can't see anything. I mean, what's your opinion on the current broadcast? Do you feel that general race fans can really follow everything that's going on? And if not, what changes could be potentially made to help that?
Well, I don't think, I think we would hear those similar kind of complaints over the years, and they may be differently put, or they may have different concerns or whatever. But I think it's important for us to work with our broadcast partners, and we're up obviously in in a renewal cycle here shortly, to make sure that that they present the sport in the best possible way. The good news is that that's their goal too. Now we may differ from time to time on one thing or another, but that's always a concern of ours to see how our, because you're right, that's where most people get their NASCAR fix is on television, and we want to make sure that it's as good as it can be.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Can you update us on the TV negotiations? Obviously, that's forthcoming, and a lot of things are based on that moving forward. Can you tell us where it's at?
Well, we're in that. We're getting into the timeline where we're having serious discussions about what the future will look like. We have our incumbents are some of the best partners we've ever had, and we'll have to see how that goes. The good news for NASCAR and frankly any high-powered sports content is there's a lot of demand for it, and so the sport will be in very good shape, and we're looking forward to those discussions and how they materialize.
Dave?
David Caravella, NASCAR.com. Brian, do you expect or foresee any changes to Rookie of the Year criteria to perhaps open that up to more drivers?
That's working pretty well for us. I think we like that it's spotlighted, some drivers, but we'll look at it. We'll look and see if that's something we work on in the off season.
Jennifer, AP, going back to the TV Pandora's box that's been open, one complaint that we in the media center get a lot from fans is the amount of commercials, and that they find that the race is very difficult to watch because there's actually people, if you can believe this, who time how much time there is on track versus commercial time, and they present these statistics that show that they're not seeing much actual racing. Is that an issue that NASCAR is also made aware of, and is there anything that NASCAR can do to cut down on commercials?
Well, look, there's a commercial balance here. There are parameters, and all of our partners have very strict parameters of how many commercial units they can run at a given time. Some have experimented, and there'll be another here with this weekend with Turner doing a sort of a rolling live event with their commercials laced in. That's a fair point, because all of our, or I say all, most of our action is live action. There aren't TV timeouts per se in our sport, so it's understandable where our fans can miss something, feel like they're missing something, and be frustrated by it. I understand that. And then there's a commercial position that as wonderful as this sport is, our TV partners aren't doing it for to just be good sports about things. So we have to balance their commercial concerns and so on. But it's something that Steve Herbst, our group in New York, work on. That's all they do is getting the presentation right, or as right as we think we can in every way.
Yep.
George?
Yeah, Brian, back here.
George Diaz with the Orlando Sentinel. You might have touched upon this earlier when you said you didn't anticipate changes in the chase, but is there any viability in looking at a road course in the mix of the chase races down the road?
I don't know. We only have 2, so it would be a little challenging just from a scheduling perspective. We haven't heard a lot of concern one way or the other why it is or isn't. So it wouldn't be top of our list.
Take a couple more questions. Mr. Ryan.
Nate Ryan, USA Today. Brian, when you say glass dashboards and cockpits, what's the purpose of that? What does that do? How does that enhance things?
Well, there'll be phases of that, and it's one of. I only share that with you because it's one of many things from an innovation standpoint that are on the drawing board. Not all of them will happen, but as an example, with the glass dashboard, that's the future. If you talk to the car manufacturers, which they're always insisting, and we understand why, want us to be as in step with them as possible, that your car dashboard in the future is going to be like an airplane cockpit, and you're going to be able to do different things with that and set it up the way you want to set it up. And so the first step is for us to have a look and feel that is consistent with what they see their cars looking at on the showroom down the road. And then the second part of that is there's going to be any number of things once we get this digitally done where that information out of the cockpit can be part of the racing experience for our fans in the stands or anywhere else. So I think that's our step towards technology. It's our step towards innovation, and it's a step towards being aligned with the car manufacturers.
We'll take 3 more questions and wrap it up. It'll go to Bob, Mike, and then we'll end with Godwin.
Bob Hocker, Sporting News. We hear a lot about your 5-year plan. What parts of that plan might you see results the soonest, and what would you expect out of that?
Well, I mean, many of you work with our IMC group, and you've seen the many changes we've made to better service the media, better get at some of the things that we think can be improved on our end. You see our efforts to take our digital rights and social media and alike that we're working very hard, hiring a lot of people, putting a bunch of resources against, and we'll have those rights, we'll be managing them fully in 2013 in January. When the light comes on in January, you'll see a big change there. I mentioned throughout this discussion about innovation, about what the R&D Center, how they're accelerating things and I got an update today from Steve O'Donnell and Robin Pemberton and group at a very fast pace. And but they'll all take time. There won't be anything that we can do, and there's nothing that we should do just for the sake of being in a hurry. We want to make sure all of these things that we're doing are best for the race fan, that make the racing better, make the experience better, align better with our partners, all the things that we say all the time. But what you're seeing from us is putting a lot of those plans in a very formal motion. And I think we'll all be happy, and I know it gives the industry, the drivers, teams, tracks, a lot of reassurance that these important things that we're all trying to get right, that we're leading on them, that we're investing lots of money and resources in a time where that's not always easy to do. And that we have a very, very clear plan of which they're participating, contributing, and we're all going in one direction. That is a pretty big change from where things were 4 or 5 years ago, as many of you may remember, where there were a lot of confusing messages or whatever that you may have heard from different people in the industry. And I'm real proud of that. That's a whole collection of efforts in the entire group at NASCAR and the entire industry that's figured out that these are big things to get done right, and we can get farther together.
Mike
Hembry, Speed.com. Brian, what are your feelings in general on shorter races And considering the sort of short attention span world we're living in, can you see the sport short-term or long-term going to things like maybe a pair of 200-mile races on a race day as opposed to 400 or 500-mile marathon? Are you looking at all at things like that down the road?
We are, and I think you'd have to acknowledge that's real. And any information shows people have more to do, more devices to play with, get information from, and as a result, their attention span is shorter. And we've shortened events, and it's generally worked well. I know Pocono worked well. I know California's worked well, and Dover's worked well. Some of the events we've done, and we'll look at that. We'll also look at, one of the great features that this sport has is, that technology is a real part of this sport in the cars themselves, in the way information is flowing back and forth between the teams, the drivers, and ourselves, and we will be able to enhance that experience for our race fans in ways that other sports may not be able to do, and that'll be something that, I said the glass cockpit, and we said our digital rights, and they're all designed to, as people are watching, and maybe this convergence, which has already happened a fair amount, where people, and I was talking to somebody today, that they don't watch the event without having their computer on to interact digitally in some way. And so all those things are on the table. That's why you have to have a plan to deal with those things. You have to have a plan to look down the road, and you have to have great people that can figure out complicated issues to make the sport better.
Last word, Daytona News Journal.
Godwin Kelly. I'm right here, Brian.
Oh, there you go.
In 2007, you introduced the COT. This is the last year for that car. Next year, you're going to have the new style cars. How much are we going to see those cars here since they debut in Daytona? Are we going to see a lot of testing here? And just generally, does the fact that the manufacturers now have more of a signature on their cars, does that get you excited?
Yeah, and more importantly, it gets them excited. They've had a lot more input, as the teams have had, in this car than we certainly did in the car in 07. And so, and that's just going to get us better results. The answer is, given how important Daytona is to the season and the biggest event, my sense is we'll see quite a bit of testing as we go down the road here in Daytona.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Okay.